Okay, we're live.
All right, I call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, April 5th, 2021. We're here for the regular Board of Trustee meeting in Orange Township, Ohio. Ms. Kraft, if you could please call roll.
Sure. Mr. Grumbles?
Here.
Ms. Taranto?
Here.
Mr. Rivers?
Here.
Any agenda changes?
For the consent agenda, Guide Studios, The Blanket, Quarter Nemeth, and Mid States Recreation. I have questions on all of those. And then there was an Eagle Scout that's putting a bench at North Road Park. I think we just need consensus that he can do that. Mike Kelly's working, Bill was, but now Mike Kelly's working with him on the location of it. I don't know, I believe we actually brought this to the board last year. None of us can remember if there was consensus though for him to place that bench.
There was consent. I recall that.
Thank you.
And I had inquired prior about Corda both as well, just because I recall in the last discussion when we had Corda Nemeth expenses, there was concern over the ongoing kind of trickling in charges.
Well, one of them is for a splash pad at North Road Park. And I thought we all agreed that that would be too crowded and we were going to find another location for that.
Right, but the expense is rooted in the work they did to present plans and drawings in the dialogue that took place between our township staff and Corda. So if you recall in that meeting, I went back and watched the meeting. They actually presented the blueprints and
Okay.
schematics. They had proposals for
So we can still
alternate-
use that with probably some minor changes when we put it someplace else, correct?
Correct. So it was just these expenses account, and I had Val and Mary Ann send me over the information that backups weren't put together yet, and it all checked out in my mind. I went back and, like I said, I went back and watched the meeting, and
Even Road Park Phase 2, not just the splash pad, but even though we put a hold on that, this is work before.
this was correct. This was the work that took place prior to that being put on hold. In the meeting that he presented, we put it on hold with him present.
Okay.
And then the second expense, that has to do with Brooks. If you recall, we had not followed up with Triad on the Township Hall renovations. And
Yes.
so we brought Brooks into the fold on that, and he took the point and coordinated with Triad. That was around COVID, and I believe it's reimbursed through the CARES Fund. It had to do with our front end renovation and potential office renovation.
And, are they going to get that front office put together soon?
I think it's done. I think it's on us to move the furniture and to relocate people.
It just
The
looks.
doors are all there. The painting's done. Everything's done. I might be, Andrew will have to opine on that.
Just are they going to put it back together, Andrew? Is my question.
So we do have furniture to move in there. I think we still need to decide what we want to do with the township hall and office space that the county provided to us. So, I mean, whether or not we're going to put someone up there, we're going to put a cubicle, redo it. I mean, we're definitely going to have a waiting area. I mean, I think that is without a doubt. So that furniture is, I think Val started just putting it out there, and then there was a snafu with a shipment. So that should be resolved in short order. But the other side of the glass, which is the office side, I think we would just need to have an understanding of what the board wants to do moving forward on office space and personnel and all that sort of stuff. But
All right.
the reception area is underway. It just got delayed for reasons outside of our control.
And then my last agenda question, I did not get any backup on the fire sick time reimbursement for the 3 firefighters or resignation letter. That was a lot of hours of reimbursement. Normally there's backup with where those hours came from, what this is for. So I have questions. And we can get to that, I guess, when we get to that part of the agenda, but I'm just stating there was no backup for me to review on that.
With the consent agenda, we'll get through get through that here. You had mentioned Mid-State Recreation, and there was an order placed for the park benches.
Bench
There was-
seats, are those park benches? Are they for ball teams that is sitting down?
15-foot bench, 16 of them. I don't, the only part that I don't know is when I looked at everything, I didn't know where they would be going. But I mean, it's pretty clear what they are. I just don't know where they're slated to be
There was
located.
no picture of them in the, in their proposal. I want to make sure that they were the park benches that I had asked for with handrails, which Bill had said that they were, if these are in fact the park benches. So is there a way to verify what they look like? They can stay in the consent agenda, just as, can I have something to look at?
I wouldn't, we would probably have to coordinate with Mary Ann unless Andrew or anyone else on the call has the ability to pull something like that and provide it to you. I don't know where they go. Like what park, is it all of our parks or North Road, or it seems like we're just replacing them for all the parks. I imagine periodically we have to. I don't know that though. They're pretty long they're huge. So it's gotta be at related to sports facility someplace.
I should figure
So
out.
I do know, talking to Mike before my departure, that there was some wear and tear on various different benches, and I know he was concerned about the safety of it, the durability and whatnot. So, I mean, I would have to ask him specifically if these are these benches, but I do recall having that conversation with him over near his office a couple of weeks ago. And I told him, hey, if they're in bad shape and you can't salvage them, then let's get a quote for them. So I'm pretty sure they're the Roe Park baseball benches based on all that.
It seems like the metal bench, Trustee Taranto. So I would assume that that's the case. I didn't know if these would be soccer benches for North Road Park. That wouldn't surprise me either if it's a mixture of the two. Either way, I think it's a valid expense.
They call them player benches on the second page.
Yeah, so the baseball, they're in the dugouts, the metal benches, right? So we can get further clarity if you like and strike it for now, or whatever your preference is here to get through this consent agenda.
Do we normally have player benches at the parks?
Yeah, in the on the sides of the dugout, there are benches there.
Okay, all right, thank
I
you.
do know that.
Okay, so circling back around, so we still have guide studio removed from the consent agenda, the blanket for professional and technical services, and are we?
That's for the website development work.
Guide
Um,
studio,
that's
Right,
going
they're
on?
supposed to have it ready. It was supposed to be done with, if you will go back and read the contract, within 6 months. We've paid them, I think, $28,000 so far. I've yet to see anything, hear anything. So I'm curious, before I approve any more money, they're late, and an update status report.
I know Nancy has been getting training and working on it. I believe there should be a demo link for everyone to review by mid-month here that is almost ready, with the goal of it going live by the end of the month. But everyone will get a chance to take a look at it and give input before anything goes live.
I don't
And
think they're,
my question then is Dude Solutions. I feel like they have a blank check. What are they doing? What have they done? It seems like a lot of money.
two separate things, right? Is there a dude solution on here too?
You just said that the blanket was for Dude Solutions. You did, or Lisa did. I'm sorry. I'm not sure who.
I did. The blanket, the feedback I got is the blanket is for Dude Solutions.
This Guide Studio. And then okay, I see what you're saying down below the blanket PO.
So trustee, I think ultimately the desire was to, instead of at every meeting approving a few $1,000 invoices, is to, I mean, really should have opened the blanket when we did the whole project. So they have done what the board contracted with them to do. So they are working with us on the capital improvement software, I forget what it's called, the asset solution forecasting software. So they came out, they did the on-site inspection. They spent a couple of days there before Bill left. They've been uploading the inventory. They barcoded a bunch of stuff. Both Mike and Aaron received a spreadsheet, and they were going through and sort of determining whose department different work orders and things should be assigned to, and sort of how the work was divvied up. I have not gotten that spreadsheet back, so I'm assuming they're both still working on it. Once they get the spreadsheet, that goes over to Dude Solutions. That point, the last thing is the training, which was scheduled to happen, but with Bill's departure, I pushed it back with the hope that we have a little bit more time to figure that out. So really, that's from what I understand. I have not talked with Casey, who's doing our implementation stuff, since Bill left. But when Bill and I sat down and went over his projects on the way out the door, that was the impression I had, that was sort of the last piece that was necessary to bring it up and running.
I think that's all I have.
Okay, what's your preference on the consent agenda, Trustee Taranto? Are you content with moving forward on the full?
I am. But Andrew, if you could follow up with like Mary Ann, she'll know more about those benches. I'd just like to know definitely what they're replacing, and make sure that it's not the park benches that I had requested.
I'm quite sure they're not, but I will certainly do that.
Okay, and then I'll wait till fire report and we'll discuss the sick time reimbursement.
On I think the only thing on Dude Solutions from my vantage point, do you have a forecast on when we will be able to I guess try it out or pilot that? Or
Well, Bill Worley's using it right now. So he switched over from Civic Plus a couple of months ago. I mean, he's been using it. Patty, part of what Bill and I did is sat down with Bill Worley and sort of worked out what the process should be when that's all completely implemented, making sure that the invoices that go out match work orders and match purchases, and we can sort of track all that thing through. Again, with Bill's departure, that didn't get completely done, but Bill Worley is using it, and that is how we're billing. We're using it to create invoice and bill other townships when they do work.
okay,
So
So-
it is out and rolling on that part of it.
Okay, so, so maybe Trustee Taranto, you, can set up next time you're on site and just take a look at it. I'm gonna make a point to do that too. It stemmed from requests I made, so I'm interested to see it operate. So sounds like we're good to go on the consent agenda. So,
And I just, from the fiscal standpoint, I just want to raise caution on that blanket. I appreciate that we might not want to bring $2,000 and $3,000 invoices to each meeting, but I'm just afraid we might get in the same situation as we are in with Corda, where, they just bill us. So, I don't know if we have a scope of work for that. I'm just throwing out just a yellow caution flag on that.
all right, so let's strike that.
It's an ongoing software contract. So what we're paid for is the upfront implementation costs, and then going forward, we're paying the licensing fee. And if we wanted additional costs, I'm sure we could do it, but that's the way it was structured. There was a certain amount of money that was earmarked because they came on site, they did the barcode, they had to do all this work. There's some training involved, again, which I put on hold. So, but going forward, once all that's done and paid for, it's an ongoing software fee, just like it would be for any subscription-based service.
Okay, so is that already under contract then?
I believe so. I mean,
Okay.
I believe it was all done last year.
I know we approved their initial effort.
And that's fine. I mean, I just wanted to make sure, we just, with the Corda stuff we've been working through the last couple months, I just didn't want to fall in that same situation.
Okay, so-
Also notice that we have some guests in the meeting with us today.
Yeah, well, and as far as agenda changes, I had requested that we move executive session up to the beginning of the meeting.
there was no understanding of, it was tied to a Trey Bell Energy email, and I spoke to Val about that. She thought we were meeting to discuss Trey Bell Energy, and that's not, we can't do that. So I told her.
Right, Trey Bell is on hold, so when we get to the point in the meeting when we're ready to have Mr. Belcastro join, he's on standby, so we can give him a call. So the executive session doesn't involve Trey Bell.
Okay, that was, we had an email exchange and a phone call about that last week, trying to understand what to put on the agenda. That's why it wasn't included. So,
Okay. Can we move up the executive session to the beginning?
for what purpose?
To pick up where we left off for our special meeting. And I'd like to have our county administrator, Mr. Fromer, and treasurer, Don Ranke, join us.
I would prefer to have some alignment on that prior to meeting time, because I don't think everybody's on the same page there yet. So I don't know that we would do that yet. I don't know that there's a follow-up. I'm open to whatever the consensus is here, but I think we need to get that ironed out through the administrator or through whoever's acting on his behalf. Get the agenda updated and go that path. Trustee Taranto and Trustee Rivers, if you both want to go into executive, I'm fine with it. But I think at first we probably ought to have a conversation before we invite anyone in.
Well, we have our guests here waiting, so I think we can join and discuss this and get back to regular session in a fairly timely manner.
I'm okay with meeting with the board first to find out what it's about.
Okay, and what's the purpose of the legal purpose for the executive session that I should read?
I can make the motion. Make the motion. to
Mind if we
enter into-
approve the consent agenda first?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-099 approving apologize. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda for the regular meeting held on April 5th, 2021.
Second?
Ms. Kraft, are you taking roll? Might be on mute. Ms. Kraft? For sake of time, Val, do you mind recording the vote here? I see Ms. Kraft is on. I just don't see that she's unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you take?
Computer's locked, so I'm
That's
in,
okay.
back office. Okay, Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes. And I'll make the motion to enter into executive session for the sole purpose to consider the appointment, employment, promotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. Would like to invite Mr. King, County Administrator Mike Fromer, and County Treasurer Don Ranke. We can join as a board and then have them join when we're ready.
Um, I would ask that Ms. Kraft be invited as well, since she was
That's
part
fine.
of the original conversation.
Yep.
All right, Michelle or Val, if you don't mind setting up a,
Yeah, Ben, just for the trustees' knowledge, so if we're doing, if members are coming in after, you'll have to close that break room and then we'll recreate another when everybody's ready to join.
understand, and while we're in executive session, I don't think it's necessary to stay live on YouTube. It's up to you. I don't know if that's a problem or not.
It's just we would end up creating multiple videos if we did that, so.
Okay, understand. All right, fine. Yeah, we'll keep it going.
Hey Val, do you have that executive slide screen?
Oh, yes.
Thanks. Let me know when you have it up and I can tell you if I see it.
It should be up now.
All right, looks good. Thank you.
All right, everybody made it back in from executive session. You want to pull the template back up or the agenda back up, please? All right, make a motion to conclude executive session and return to regular session.
Second.
Mr. Rumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
So for Mr. Ranky and Mr. Fromer, we're going to follow up. I'll include you on the correspondence, but we need to get clarity on one issue before we hold executive session. So I'll be sending an email at the conclusion of our meeting tonight, and we'll make sure that you guys are copied on the dialogue, so that we can get that taken care of. We'll probably potentially look to have a special meeting just for that matter, once we get clarity on that. Apologize for the confusion there. Appreciate both of you coming in today and trying to work with us on that. All right, I think we need to approve some minutes. Or is that included in the consent agenda? I didn't read
Part of the consent, so we're on to zoning.
I didn't read both numbers there, so if I need to go back and do that, I can. All right, Miss Bonnie.
All right, yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? We're having internet connections issues at the office. So let me know if you can't hear me or not. Val, if you could show the zoning report, that would be great. It should be on the backup items. Val, you're on mute. I don't know if you're having some difficulties.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it in these backup items. I thought we put it there.
Okay. It should have been on there, but I can share my screen if you click stop share. Thank you. Okay.
I have it in my backup, Michelle.
Okay. Okay, so we have a lot going on. Tomorrow, April 6th at 7 p.m., we'll have a zoning commission work session on a proposed sheets at the corner of Orange and 23. We've been working with them quite diligently on their proposal, and we do have a lot of comments, but it seems like the conversation is going well. And as far as the trustee hearing, that might have to be delayed, but I will keep the board updated on that. Okay. Wonder why the rest of the report is not showing. Oh, boy. Sorry, never good timing on these, huh? Okay. The next item on the zoning report is for Tuesday, April 13th, next week at 7 p.m. That'll be the second hearing on, on the North Farms condominium proposal. Following that on Thursday, April 15th at 6 p.m. For BZA, we have a conditional use for the Enclave at Abbey Knoll, the model home that's over on South Old State. Following that is a area variance for a construction of a pool in the North Farm subdivision. And again, as mentioned, the trustee meeting is tentatively scheduled for sheets for April 19th at 6 p.m. But we are unclear if that has to be that will have to be pushed back. And again, I'll let the board know when that comes.
Hey, Michelle.
Yes.
Specific to this application, I did look over the plans you sent. I appreciated that. There was a lot of good material there. So thank you for sending that on our way to review. Right away, just offering feedback from my perspective. So the only concern I had looking over this was Orange Road and the ingress coming from the, I guess it would be the north side, traveling west. The predominant entry exit point is on Orange Road, where it's got controlled traffic in and out only going southbound on 23. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I looked at the plans and I did not see a turn lane there. And I have big time concerns from past experience in our township when we've taken a similar approach. Not going to say speedway out loud, but I just did. Where there's been a similar approach that created a major opportunity for improvement. That's the nicest way to say it. So
sure. So we had a technical review meeting on this application last week, and we actually had both ODOT and the county engineers there, which I thought was a great conversation to have. The original proposal did have 2 access points on Orange Road, but after talking to Bill Cowan at the time, we did recommend sheets to remove one of those as it was too close to the intersection. But, you know, I don't have an exact answer to, you know, what the feasibility of that is, but there was a traffic impact study done. And my understanding is both ODOT and the county engineers reviewed that. So
yeah, the only pushback you'll hear from me then is that they must have approved Speedway too, and that was a utter failure. So it caused multiple accidents on an almost daily basis at that intersection, and shut down traffic backing into multiple intersections. So just from my own personal vantage point, would want to look at the queue space, the number of cars that would be able to queue up there while everyone's waiting for there to be, I guess you have competing queues. You have a queue at the stoplight that's backed up, waiting to go down, leave Orange Road and turn left to right or continue traveling straight, going eastbound, and then you have a queue forming westbound. So unless someone's polite and allows for them to turn left, you got a problem there. And that, so just sharing my feedback. I know I can't say too much, apparently, or I shouldn't, but that was the only.
I mean, it's worth having the conversation. You know, hopefully the applicant, when it gets to the trustee level, will, you know, have a response to your concerns. So
thank you.
I'm sure it'll be relayed in the zoning commission as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I think Speedway was when it was still an old country road, and may even have been Columbus. It's been there a long time.
Yes. That is in the township actually, but it does border Columbus at that point. But I know a lot of our standards were not around back then. The last thing I have on the zoning report is for Tuesday, April 27th at 7 p.m. This will be the second hearing for the independent living on South Old State. So we had quite a few residents attend that meeting at the zoning commission level, and we will be requesting legal counsel to sit in on this meeting as they wanted to discuss further how we can restrict the age 55 and older community. And that's all I have. We still have a pending variance, but that date has not been certain. So that's all I have for the zoning report. Thank you. I do have one other item, and I don't know, Val, if you want to share if you're able to share your screen again with the template. One of the things that have been long overdue is to discuss compensation of our zoning boards, both the BZA and the zoning commission. From my understanding, I don't think that the compensation has ever been adjusted for the last 15, maybe 20 years. So I am just bringing this to the board's attention. I'd like to compensate our board members at a higher rate, both at $100 per meeting. I did a pretty extensive research to see what other communities are doing. And I'd say we're a little above average from what I'm proposing, but Orange Township is such a growing and community that our board members stay longer, for three to 4 hours in the evenings. And right now the BZA is paid $50 a meeting, and the zoning commission is compensated at $75. So, and then this resolution was prepared by the prosecutor's office.
Any concerns or comments?
No, I'm in support.
I'm fine with it.
I thought we increased it one time, but I can't find the,
I think we did for zoning commission,
okay.
but it's that one might be 10. It's been a while. So,
But yeah, I'm still okay with it.
thank you.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-103, increasing compensation of members of zoning boards.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
That's all I have for the zoning report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bonnie. Brings us to operations. I believe, Mr. King, if you want to chime in on the pool discussion and where things stand there, and I can discuss my points here. I asked for a couple of these things to be added.
Sure, Trustee, I'm happy to. So as actually Trustee Taranto shared with me, the governor changed some of the orders today. So I did send that around to the board at the beginning of the meeting. So at this point, don't really know what that means. I mean, the conversation we had when the health district came on site and did their walkthrough and inspection is, they were going to follow what the governor and the Ohio Health District had put out in that Responsible Restart Ohio, as far as them inspecting us and regulating us and whatnot. But they also sort of indicated that they were, not looking to whack anybody, that it was, they wanted to view it as a partnership and just protect everyone and not play a gotcha game. So, ultimately there's a lot of authority delegated to the local health district in regulating pools. So I with sort of the change in the order, rescinding the specific points, but keeping in place some of the broader strokes, I think we're just going to have to sort of circle back with Sheila, and based on how this has gone in the past, it's going to take her a week or two to be able to put some guidance out. But sort of that change notwithstanding, and the fact that the Senate bill that was the veto was overrode, that would give the General Assembly sort of their own veto authority on these executive orders. I think where it was left and what was shared with the board is we did have that on-site inspection with the health district. Fred, 2 of his staff came. Mary Ann was there along with Mike Kelly, was filling up the pool today to get that ready. And so, we shared with the board that, Fred feels good that he's going to be able to run the pool even with restrictions. So, I think sort of where it was left was, what if there's any changes that the board would like to see. I mean, one of the things that Fred needed to know ASAP was swimming lessons, because he walked away from our previous discussion understanding there wouldn't be swimming lessons. So he's not staffed for that. I reviewed an email from him today, and I think he's pretty deep in the hole at this point with that. So we would have to contact him quickly to see if that's even doable at this point, because he hasn't been hiring staff and training staff for that. But outside of that, I think the question just remains. I know there was some internal discussions about the level of fees and whether or not what was put into the bid documents with CPM was what we wanted to charge this year. I think, as previously shared, the rec desk, Mary Ann's had extensive conversations with them. I've, based on what she's told me, not anything I've seen, it sounds like selling season passes through rec desk is doable. Fred will also do his on-site sales, as he's done in the past. Those are written into the contract. So, season passes are, I think, pretty well taken care of at this point. What we sort of have to look at is figuring out the number of total occupants. I think Bill shared with the board, I want to say it was like maybe 245 people. I want to say, I'm doing this off the top of my head, that we thought would be allowed in the pool. Talking to the health district, I think we can actually allow more in. So, and it's all been sort of positive news, the governor's order not withstanding today. So, where I think we're at, again, Mike was filling the pool up today. So, we're going to test everything, see what needs replaced. And we obviously did some updates and upgrades. Originally we thought we could open everything with the governor's order rescinded. I think we're going to be able to open all the slides and play structures. Again, we'll have to sort of circle back with the health district on that. So, I think ultimately what's left is, if we're, able to get somewhere between 300 to 500 people in, even with the 6-foot rule, if the board wants to look at doing more than season passes. Typically in the past, when we've done day passes, they've been sold in person on site with, cash. So that led to some reconciliation that would have to go on daily. So, eliminating day passes, at least for the time being, would avoid that. People coming, additional lines, additional crowdings, touching the passing of the cash, all that kind of stuff. But we can certainly do it. There's perhaps the ability to do it through rec desk. And all of this has not been tested. Last year was going to be the first season we used rec desk for that. So, I think that's sort of an outstanding question about the day passes. And then, sort of along with that, if we're just going to sell day or season passes to residents or non-residents, are going to be allowed to purchase them. And, I think, where it stood before, with when we were thinking it was going to be pretty limited capacity and we were trying to avoid people coming to the window to make purchases and pay with cash, that, doing season passes to residents only made the most sense. As these restrictions are getting looser and looser and looser, I think we're sort of creeping towards a pool season like normal. But again, until we get more guidance from the Delaware County Health District, I can't really tell you the full impact of what the governor rescinded today. I mean, technically it was the health director, but I think, as far as if the board wants to, make some of those changes tonight without sort of knowing what the health district has said, we can certainly explore that. If the board wants to sort of reassess once we know more information from Sheila in a couple of weeks, at the next meeting in a couple of weeks, I think, I only got to talk to Mike really briefly today, but, it sounded like he feels pretty good. Fred feels pretty good. But I mean, I guess long story short, if there's anything that I need to walk away with the meeting from tonight is a firm decision on whether or not we want Fred to do swimming lessons, because he has not been preparing for that. And it may not be possible at this point, but he just needs to know. So, but that's basically my pool update. I think we're creeping slowly towards, I think, a very, very positive pool season for a great number of people.
I am in support of swim lessons. I hate to see kids miss 2 years in a row. I do understand the staffing issue though. So my vote is we move forward with it. And if he can staff it, great. If he can't, I understand. I hate to see us not have another swim lesson. Kids really need those.
Yeah, I would like to see
and-
swim lessons as well.
I'm sorry, Trustee Rivers, I didn't mean to speak over you, but Trustee Taranto, I did share that with Fred, and that's when he said, I haven't really been hiring or staffing for it. So I will make a point tomorrow. I think there's at least a majority, if not a consensus, to do that. And I'll see if he can get it done for us tomorrow.
I'm indifferent on the pool lessons, but I will tell you in scheduling them at the alternatives in our township, in our area, they are extremely backlogged. There's waits and difficulty getting that scheduled. So it would be a nice gesture. I know, looking at the minutes, we had said, leaning towards no. However, if you recall, that's the swim lesson window of time is when we thought it would be a nice gesture to have supplement the pool capacity with a senior only block of time. There wasn't any additional, I guess, really management needed there outside of what the normal pool staff would be doing. And I wouldn't expect it to be a overwhelming and impede on swim lessons. You never know, but sounds like we're going to do swim lessons. So we need to get back with Fred on that. And then the capacity that we had before was 314 patrons, but there was a smaller number that were allowed in the water. I think that's the 200 number you recall. Then there were additional patrons that could be on the deck and surrounding areas. And that was a very conservative number that was developed. So I did see that the House and Senate that they had overrode the veto and expected there to be a pretty quick movement towards pulling back on some of the restrictions. But again, I don't know that we can do anything without guidance. I think that the only real sticking point that we've been unable to move forward on relates to managing capacity. So if we have capacity constraints, there were two schools of thought that were shared at the open meeting we had, or the regular meeting. One of having someone at the front cut off the line when when their clicker hits the magic number. The other was to have them schedule on the front end and rec desk. And that was the path that we had been discussing going back some time in the last year with the rec desk training and so on and so forth. So I know that can be done. I know Mary Ann feels better about it, and talking with her, having met with them, and apparently it was a pretty easy train up, and they didn't even spend the full duration of the call. I also know, in speaking to rec desk and looking at their online training tutorials on their YouTube page, that you can handle individual transactions. So there is the ability to buy day passes on rec desk. The challenge comes in if there's inclement weather and how you handle refunds. So that would be the caveat there. Alternatively, we could have day passes sold at the front of house. Personally, I think that would eliminate the rework and problem with you're going to reconcile on one way or another. And if we had the we have video equipment there and we're managing capacity, I have less concern that we're going to be in a situation where there's money discrepancies. I don't think we've hit that too often in the past in talking with the previous fiscal officer and Mr. Cowan. So that would be my recommendation there. If we do lean towards day passes, regarding season passes, I sent an email. I believe everybody got a copy of it. After we met, that looked at, one of my actions was to look around and talk in the community. And I talked to Highland Pool and sent their rates out. Their resident rates were cheaper than ours, and they have a pretty complex pool operation over there. So I thought at minimum, we should match their rates to be consistent in our region or our county area, and reduce our membership rates accordingly. I think personally, from a membership standpoint, it would be in the community's best interest to limit membership to residents only this year. If we think back last year, it was a huge disappointment. They invested in the pool, we made repairs, and all of the residents are eager to get back in and use it. And I think a great way to offset the pain over the last year is to allow them dedicated access to an asset that they fund, and having them retain access to the pool this year exclusively would certainly help convey that message and reiterate that we recognize their contributions and so forth. From a day pass perspective, in line with that, if we did open up day passes, I would suggest that they're for residents only, or guests that accompany a resident, if you will. And the challenge with having day pass sales at the front of house versus rec desk can verify your resident status. And so in the past, the benefit of using rec desk, and one of the reasons it was implemented, was to prevent non-residents from transacting as a resident. So there's that offset in having day passes handled at front of house. We could verify residency. Otherwise, there's really no way outside of a additional workload for the staff employed by the pool company to verify residency status at the front of house. You would almost have to just limit day passes to season sales to those with a season pass or an annual pass, if you will, because that would, if we made that residents only, that would eliminate the confusion, if you will, in that regard. If that all makes sense, I don't know. Trustee Taranto or Rivers or Mr. King, any thoughts there? Ms. Kraft?
I'm probably okay with that. I'm not okay with lowering. I think our prices have always been fair and even on the lower side. Remember, Westerville's a city. They have probably funds for some things that we don't have, and we broke even maybe once during the pool season. I realize that the levy covers part of it, but feedback that I've always received from our residents is how fair they felt our pool prices were. So I'm okay with everything, but not with lowering the prices.
Fair. And I know in Powell, I believe, or one of the other communities, that the prices are significantly higher. So that's fair. But I think that if we could extend the gesture of residents only from a pass holder standpoint, just giving them that exclusive access, and we'd have to find a way for day passes. I don't think not letting them use the pool because they don't.
No, I agree with you there. And unless it's tough, if cousins in town and they want to go to the pool, I don't have an issue with that.
Right. Okay.
With June, obviously, it sounds like some of this, we're already seeing changes come June. It sounds like things should lessen. We don't know for sure. You got, continues to be kind of up in the air, consistently changing, possibly looking at phasing in some of these things. I think obviously we want to get our memberships open, let our residents go out and purchase their memberships, everything moving forward. Some of this, it might be best just to say, depending upon the guidelines and where things stand, it's TBD, possibly. I mean, I think you do have, a cousin comes in town or whatnot, that you could have residents, on the flip side of the coin, see that as an issue, that non-residents can't come in. I think we need to be mindful of that. So
Oh,
I would encourage looking at a phase in, possibly for some of these unknowns. And then with the pool being closed last year, and with still some of the stuff up in the air, I just don't think right now is the time to change the rates. I think we stick with our rates. I'm open, after this year, to reviewing the rates and and seeing if we need to make any adjustments. But I think for now, to stick with what we've done in the past and to try and make this just absolutely as simple as possible.
So if we want to, just to clarify, I'm not suggesting that we wouldn't sell day passes. What I was suggesting is that if you're a season pass holder, that would be clarity that you are a resident. So if those folks have people coming into town, they could show their season pass with their picture on it or whatever path we take there, and then purchase the day passes for their family members and friends or whoever, as a way to mitigate. If we use Rec Desk for everything, that handles the resident versus non-resident, as I was saying. If we handle it at the door, I don't expect the pool company to know our residential boundaries. And so it would just lead to a massive line while they're trying to look up an address or whatever. So the simple solution there is either we provide a resident status card to everybody, which is ridiculous, or just let them, in my opinion anyway, or just let the season pass holders, if they want to buy passes, they can. But if we want to wait to decide if we're going to have a capacity constraint, I think that's fine. If we want to TBD that, because I did see like I said, the state move on overriding the veto. We saw the email come across, and I don't think they're going to drag their feet too hard on peeling that back. If we limit it to residents, I think our capacity concerns are going to be largely mitigated for a good while anyway. So I don't know what your thoughts are there. If Mary Ann knows how to do it, feels good about it, and we share that, there could be registration requirements pending the latest update. I know people are going to be reluctant to buy passes. If there's some may be reluctant, but I'd hate to put out that we're going to do registrations and then similarly, if we didn't do it and we need to, it's a catch-22, I guess. So I don't know what your all's thoughts are there, but I don't know how the day pass is the only concern for me really on how even if a resident didn't have a season pass, I don't think it's appropriate to prohibit them from accessing the pool. I just don't know how we would manage that outside of Rec Desk. Lisa or Trustee, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. Like I said, I'm a big believer in. Yeah, I see these rules. That they. I don't know exactly what they've come back out and said they're loosening up, But, you know, I also hear on the news, there's concerns of a fourth wave coming of, you know, of this. So I'm trying to balance the optimism with, you know, what I heard on Good Morning America this morning. And once again, showing up at the pool as a season's pass holder with my kid in tow, all greased up in sunscreen, and not being able to get in the pool because it's at capacity.
No, I agree.
So-
That we have to manage, if we have a capacity constraint, we should manage it on the front end. I guess what I was saying is that if there's concern over, sounds like there's concern over moving that direction now and having it peeled back. I just don't think we can wait much longer to sell passes and communicate to residents. So, you know, I think it's in our best interest to pick one path or the other and get going. There's consensus on keeping the rate where it's at for residents. We're not going to sell season or passes to non-residents this year. Rec Desk will handle all the resident verification. If he sells the passes in person, we're going to have to find some way to verify residency status too. So just keeping that in mind, I think there's a good bit we're aligned on. Either board member, can we call it and just say we're going to plan to schedule time slots on the front end, and so we can move forward? Is that fair?
Yes, and hoping that it's going to change.
So if we are scheduling the time, so you're saying use Rec Desk and schedule like a reservations?
Correct. You click onto a link and you just select an open time slot. When it gets to 3:20 or whatever, you're not, it blocks that time out. When they buy their pass or they do anything in Rec Desk, they have to create a profile. It's got their family head count, their address, etc. It bounces that off of the county's GIS upload that was done, and we may need to request a current upload since we're growing. And it says yes or no that they're a township resident. So it would be easy to configure Rec Desk. It's a binary system, yes or no. If we eliminate registrations for non-residents, then problem solved. And they can go in, create their profile. When they select their time slot, they select the number of patrons. It won't let them go over what they put forth on their pass. And then they hit enter, and it's a few seconds of heavy lifting, goes a long way. They show up at their time, they're ready to go.
So if they reserve and then all of a sudden bad weather or something unexpected, are we going to offer refunds?
Well, they're going to be season pass holders, so there wouldn't be a need to refund.
Okay, so this is all just season pass holders?
Correct. That's why I was saying the refund problem makes it a lot easier to handle day passes at the front of house. They're not going to go there if it's a storm. So we don't have to worry about it. The problem with day passes is we can't guarantee residency status. So you come up and say, I want to buy a day pass. You live here? Yeah, sure do. Okay. I mean, unless there's someone there that wants to pull up Google Maps and check their address against their driver's license, which I think could be a huge waste of time and back the line way up. So that's what I was saying. You just create your profile. It knows who you are when you go back. You select the slot you want, and it opens up. The way they're doing it at Highland, this was in the email I sent out mid-March, if you want to reference that, but they allow pass holders to schedule time slots 2 days in advance or 48 hours in advance. And then if any remaining slots 24 hours in advance or something of that nature, the night before, basically, they go on sale for day pass. They're using all online to avoid exactly what I discussed with residency status and all of that. So it's much easier to handle.
Right.
They're
You're
using
saying this is 100% season membership.
on ours, in our plan it is. In
Okay.
their plan, it's not. They're selling to everybody. And And because they're using their rec track, not rec desk, it's the same thing. It vets their residency status right there, so it knows how much to charge. We could do the same thing if we wanted to and say there's no cash, you have to use rec desk. The problem is, to your point, if there's inclement weather, we run into issues of refund. And we could come up with a policy that, we'll give you a rain check or whatever, or issue a refund, or, I don't know what the right answer is there.
And
You
CPM
should-
has access to all this is communicated registration. Someone there has access to all this and can log in and see what's registered and has access to the system.
It's just a computer. So if they have a computer, they can log into rec desk and verify the time slots. When we scheduled at the pool we went to last year, we showed up, they checked our name, they pulled open the log. They knew everybody that was coming in for a time slot. They just checked that your name was there, and that was it.
Well, right,
So-
but we haven't used rec desk before, correct?
No, that's correct. I think it's the first season of full implementation. So it would just
So
take a staff
we-
member at the front desk checking it on the list as opposed to taking money.
Right. But we have the technology there at the pool where someone can pull up rec desk and check this each morning when they come in. They see what the reservations are and who's logged. They can log in the system right there at the pool and view everything.
I'm not sure what software they have on their computers over there. I don't think it would be a tall order to get a computer over there with our software on it. We have a couple. So if it is, then we could print it out and or email it or provide it that way as well.
Do you think that this would cause a lot of frustration though with residents and employees?
Doing it all over the country and in our cities around Orange Township successfully. The Y's doing it, Highland's doing it. So I don't know if it's, if it's going to be a unique issue here, but most of the residents that have gone to pools, I mean, I know when I talked to Lisa Kraft, she scheduled last year when they went to the pool. Do you remember how they checked you in, Lisa?
Yeah, they just had an iPad that was there. I went to JC's last summer over in Westerville, and they just had an iPad that checked us in.
So we have these little cards that we're issuing out to people, barcodes. And when you register your time in rec desk, it should have the functionality to know that barcode. And so one of the things we talked about at the meeting and then subsequent to the meeting is if you have to do Excel or something simple, you walk in and you scan that and it just tallies up who's in the been admitted. But we can certainly call rec desk again and validate that. We could go over to Highland Pool to put in my email that their pool manager was willing to walk through, share, do whatever he could to help us out. So there's a pretty like-sized operation that we can, baseline with. But ultimately, I think at a summary level, if we can get consensus in this meeting on scheduling up front or not, we've already got consensus that the rates don't change, which is fine. And then move out on those two. The rest will be follow-up discussion. I don't think that there were any other variables we weren't decided on. I know that Mike Kelly's working on a food vendor or a vending machine type setup. There were some other loose ends out there, but nothing of significance. So do we want to schedule capacity up front or not? That's the real question that remains for us to give the team. I would like us to just go ahead and say we're going to do it and commit to doing it. And if we have to appeal pending health district, we'll eliminate that. Everything else we've got consensus on except that. We're going to have resident only passes, all of that is and day passes that residents can purchase.
Lisa, as someone with a young son, how does this sound to you?
I'm just thrilled that the pool's going to be open. I got to be honest. That if I can take my kid to the pool for 2 hours to burn off some energy, that is a wonderful thing.
We've done the check-ins and it was seamless. It took no time. You know, we had the little YMCA membership badge and they're using, I think, either RecTrack or one of the similar software packages, and you scan it in, have a good swim. The team knows that the time blocks are, and you get out and leave and next group comes in. So I don't think first of all, if they don't revise, we won't have a choice, right? So I think we need to account for that. And then if they do revise, then great, don't worry about scheduling, just come have fun, and problem solved.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Mr. King, you good with getting consensus on scheduling up front, and then resident passes, the rate stays the same, everything else? Any other questions that we can get answers for before we move forward?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the one caveat that I've shared with the board is, and I think Trustee Rivers brought it up when this is the first time using the system. So it is my understanding, based on Mary Ann's discussion with RecDesk, that we can indeed do the scheduling, and it is something built into RecDesk. So assuming that the software does what it says it can do, then it should work fine. But that is the one caveat, is we've not attempted to use that before, and we've had some bumpy software rollout recently. So, but again, I don't have any doubt that they have represented to Mary Ann that they can do it.
She went through the
So
training.
I'll certainly circle back with her tomorrow, and we'll make sure we get that rolling.
She went through training specific to that a couple weeks ago and sent an email out. I thought everybody got a copy, maybe different times, but I thought it got sent out that her and Nancy went through the training, and it took less time than they expected, and they know how to do it. It worked fine, easier than expected. And if you think back to the on-site meeting we had, one of the things brought up that I shared was it's really easy to test. All we need to do is test it. So we can certainly do that between now and our go live date. User acceptance testing is the industry name for it, and we can create profiles. And in fact, I believe Mary Ann shared during that discussion that there are some test profiles that exist. So we can tap into the system, run the test, and try and break it, and then get RecDesk support if we need it. If we need to call RecDesk and request some sort of on-site help, we can bring that to the board at the next meeting. But we've paid for software. If you go to their YouTube page, the setup takes minutes for this type thing. And of course, they're the experts on it, but you can go step by step and pause the videos and watch. And there's hundreds of communities across the country doing it that have examples on RecDesk that they've helped implement. So I'm confident that Orange Township can be one too.
Well, like I said, I will certainly talk to Mary Ann tomorrow, and probably talk to Mike and Fred, and just take it from there.
And
And as we get updates from the health district on information, I'm sure if the board isn't, sometimes, as you know, the board is just put on the blast, but if they're not, I'll make sure that it gets shared.
the other thing to reiterate, is that we are going to do swim lessons. So we need to get with them quickly on that, it sounds like. Nothing further. I'm assuming next item is Parks Master Plan. I just wanted to get a general update on the status of the Parks Master Plan. I know that the board received an email about a survey. And so I just wanted to find out what is the general progress and update on the Parks Master Plan.
Well, I believe
I can
the
certainly
steering
share.
committee
Go ahead,
is,
Trustee, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, yeah, the
Go ahead,
steering
I'm sorry.
committee is OTOC, who has things moving forward, working on, same as kind of like we did with the branding project, putting together the list and having the first stakeholder meeting, whether that's online or in person, is kind of falls in the same bucket as the rest of this stuff, with the guidelines and what we can do. Preferably, we'd like to do it in person, but the next OTOC meeting is set for April 12th. And I know they are working with our vendor and are going to be discussing dates and trying to get that schedule confirmed.
Have they done any work on the plan itself, or have they met with anyone, or
Yeah,
just
so
wasn't-
the vendor is providing, and this was in the proposal that we got with the guideline, as far as what all they offer. The survey is out. We want to make sure that we're out promoting that survey, getting as much engagement as possible. There is the separate link that has the landing page for the plan, so that has gone out and is out there. But then, just like the same, like I said, with our braiding project, the first major event of this, of bringing this together, is our stakeholder meeting. So I believe that was in the email that went out, as far as reaching out to the HOAs and the different groups that were identified and getting them engaged for this meeting. So pulling all that information together, and then hopefully we'll have a date come April 12th.
any other questions on the Parks Plan? So just clarifying, April 12th is when they'll take subsequent steps on getting the on-site scheduled. Is that accurate?
Correct.
I'd also share with the board that Pat Hogland did come at one point. I think he met with Bill. I know I was not involved with that, and did sort of take a quick tour of our parks facilities and whatnot. So he's been through the area, been through the parks. So there has been some on-site presence in addition to what they've been doing with the surveys and outreach and those sorts of items.
We could reach out to them. I would appreciate, if nothing else, just an introduction and just and kind of sit down and talk with the people doing it, just so I know who they are.
Normally, that's how it works, is they come to a trustee meeting, introduce themselves, they talk to us about the process, who the stakeholders are. So it's been done a little bit in a silo, and from my point of view, but I guess
I'm
it's-
sure that, well, I'm
Yeah.
sure that can be arranged. I know they've just been kind of collecting everything, and we're getting the schedule laid out. So to have them come to a meeting once that date is set and present, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I would have just sort of emphasized that I do believe, and I would have to pull out their proposal. I mean, everything they're doing thus far, to the best of my recollection, is consistent with what their proposal was, and they were the highest rated and awarded the contract. So, I mean, I think certainly if we want to bring them to a meeting and introduce them, I don't see any problem with that. But at the same time, I think they've just been sort of proceeding on what they proposed. But again, I don't foresee a problem with that. I just wanted to make sure it's not. They certainly have not intended to do anything in a silo. They're just proceeding with what they proposed.
I don't. I'm not implying that they did. I just, when I think of a project, there's a proposal that's approved, a contract signed, payment, et cetera, that takes place, which I'm aware of happened. And then there's a project kickoff or some other type of orientation so that there's at least a timeline or an agenda that is briefed and discussed versus, just coming in and for lack of a better word, getting updates post completion without any sort of introduction or dialogue on the front end. For example, when you talk about community engagement and surveys, or you talk about the process, a more generic description on a path. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go and talk to residents. Well, and conduct surveys. That can be handled a variety of ways. It can take weeks, it could take months. And then what are you going to do with that information? That was touched on a bit in the proposal. Are they, taking a look at the survey questions, agreeing on those, talking through those, hearing them discuss learnings from other communities and help us get up to speed on the value they bring to this $100,000 agreement. What are they, we looked at their prospectus and we agreed on their proposal. That should then translate into some sort of follow-up or formality in order to transition to the subsequent step. I think that's where I'm coming from anyway, and what I was hoping to have happen in the future. They did have a wonderful proposal, and I know in reading about them that they've done great work. Was excited for this to start, and I still am. But I would like to have a bit more awareness of where we're at and what's going on, and in that process,
Well,
as opposed to just a brief.
I believe that's kind of where the position is at now, is in, if I remember back to the branding project, as far as like a kickoff for the event, the stakeholder meeting is right around that time, was kind of the official, kickoff launch. So I think it's, they've kind of collected all the information they have. We'll have them attend a meeting. We'll get the stakeholders set, and I think we'll kick this off and make sure everyone's on the same page here and engaged, and we'll have a successful new plan.
I think when you asked your questions, Ben, that's why I was trying to explain to you kind of how it had been done in the past. That doesn't mean it has to happen in the future that way, but the level of communication I was trying to explain.
Yeah, and I agree. It doesn't mean we have to repeat the past, but I'm new, so most of my expectations are rooted in external experience as opposed to Orange Township. So I just want to make sure I know what's going on. As it stands, being the parks liaison, it's a point of just more kind of duty and awareness. Aside from being a trustee, I want to make sure that I'm engaged and tracking on that. And I know the survey component, handling that through OTOC is fine, makes sense. But I want to have some level of engagement, unless the construct changes, at least just perspective to that is all. So nothing further on my end. If you guys are ready to move on. Okay, hearing nothing. I know that we were provided with a couple of agreements for cricket. Field use, I have no concerns with either of them. Any concerns from the board or fiscal office? And I'm assuming Mary Ann is good to go on follow up with these, Mr. King. She know who to,
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
if we approve these tonight, I imagine that the parties have to be notified and payment collected and everything finalized because it's pending board approval. Is she in a good spot to take care of that, or?
I mean, that is my understanding. I mean, we had some very preliminary back and forth emails about this before I left, and she jumped right on it, got a hold of them, and got them scheduled and got the agreements together. So, I mean, she acted quickly, and I'd have no doubt that she's ready to bring it to a conclusion. I know I've seen the parties' names. I just honestly don't remember at this point who the individuals are that made the request.
Andrew, I forwarded you an email during the meeting, and that is just one. I probably have had 4 different residents reach out to me on what the process is of scheduling these fields. And it seems that, I think it's Columbus United feels like they're not getting a fair shake. Can you explain the process to me? I'm not really sure. It's just something I've always just approved the agreements, you know?
Mr. King, if you don't mind, I'm happy to respond since I worked with Bill on this specific issue.
Please do.
So there were some, I guess, for lack of a better word, some accusations made that there was a disproportionate or favoritism, or there was a lot of different accusations that were lobbed out, along with including a threat of legal action over how the fields were scheduled. And it was mentioned that in the past things were done this way or that way. And I probably spent 2 to 3 weeks with Bill helping him through this, and he provided everything that you would need to me, and I'm happy to forward it to Mr. King. He can share with the board to substantiate his position. There was no, with Bill, since he's been leading, there's never been any systemic waiting for any one process. When people were ready to reserve the field, they sent their request in. He's always done it in a first come, first serve fashion. There was a mention that that wasn't true. He sent all of the verification emails to me that it was in fact true from his perspective. There may have been a different approach that his predecessor took, but Bill followed the book, was consistent in the way he managed the field use agreements. When the application was sent in, he calculated a number. It's a formula that he worked with, I believe, Chris Betts on. Chris Betts got involved, helped with the contract development. Everything was finalized with the requesting party, and the board was asked to approve. This year, some of the groups, and in the past this occurred, some groups would send their stuff in before others. This year, one specific group, Columbus United, sent their request in after at least 3 or 4 other parties. And when they did so, Bill informed them that here's what's available. And immediately upon hearing that there were, that they would have to utilize the remaining windows, it was just a full-on, it devolved immediately into residents calling, emails, text messages from residents. This isn't fair. We're going to sue, you name it. Coming on site. And there was a prolonged period of about a month of this banter back and forth, where there would be a question and a complaint. Bill would respond. Meanwhile, other people are following the same process and taking more and more time up. When you look at the aggregate hours that each organization gets, there's really no disparity. It's that it's not their preferred or optimal windows. Well, you're never going to please everyone. And there seemed to be a real problem for Columbus United specifically, because we have a dedicated cricket area. And up until the point he left, emails that were coming across like, well, we'll just use those fields and if there's no cricket people there. Well, that's not how it works. If they come an hour late or 30 minutes late, they've paid for the field, they have dedicated time. And we really didn't want to get into a confrontation and have residents pitted against each other. So there was comments about, well, that club doesn't have as many Orange residents as us. So I made it real simple. In the future, we can have you send a quantity and address of your membership, and we can discuss as a board how to allocate our field space based on resident status. But I can tell you, after speaking to each club, every one of them says the same thing about the other. And well, these clubs aren't even in Orange Township, and we are. And okay, I got it. But here's where we're at. We've signed contracts with these other entities, and they have dedicated time and space. Here's what's left. Do you want it or not? And finally got to the point where there was an agreement. And like I said, when you look at the aggregate hours, they're the same. So if you don't get the day and time that you want every single time, then unfortunately, there's not enough field space, there's not enough time, and assets are limited. That's part of the demand that Jennings, is here to account for. And meanwhile, the township is being put in the business of, satisfying demand for these entities. It's what they are, who are, essentially, their business is rooted in the township's assets. It's an unhealthy dynamic that we really need to address, and it's the root of why I brought to the board the need to reconsider North Road Park specifically, because if you look at that by design, it's a soccer pitch and a cricket pitch, and there was already limited parking, and we're trying to dress that up and make it, more feasible. But at the end of the day, the residents of our township collectively are funding a field that's 100% allocated to private clubs. 100%. That's a disservice to the community, number one. And number two, I'm not sure it's a great return on investment, because there's 200-300 kids, maybe 400 kids that have monopolized with the club a field. And I'm telling you for sure, you can majority of and higher proportion of, that's a relative term. Everybody means something different to everyone. Not all their children and players are from Orange Township. They're from Berlin, they're from Powell, they're from Westerville, some even further out. And having conversation with parents of these folks that I know that were civil about it, it's pretty obvious to see what's going on here. So I have a hard time with our staff getting verbally, degraded and emailed and threatened over a couple of hours here and a couple hours there, and one club not getting their way, or the other club not getting their way. And it's been other clubs that have taken that approach in the past. So when we have a new operations director, we need to calibrate as a board on this, really look at our assets. It's one of the things I wanted to talk to this parks group about, because they did, if you recall, I mentioned this in our board meeting, they had a presentation on this at the OTA this year, and they've dealt with similar in the past, and their position on it is very similar to what I've shared. It's more of a cost burden to our township than a benefit. And you want to talk about a net loss, when you look at what we paid for North Road Park, we'll continue to spend in just maintenance, and what the offset is from these private clubs who've monopolized it, it's a loss. Absolutely. And we really need to consider that.
I'm gonna forward you the email and let you respond to her. Because you
That's not a
definitely
problem.
know more than probably Andrew and I combined.
So it's a much bigger problem, and it's an increasing problem. We are really need to work hard to support these businesses coming in. They're really suited to satisfy these private clubs. These clubs are exclusive. Make no mistake about it. They're charging thousands of dollars per player. They have hundreds and hundreds of players, but they're nonprofit. And so, right off the bat, you want to talk about access to a resource and so on and so forth. Plus, you have to make the team. If this was an OIAA or an I-9 type organization, I'd have much less concern over what's happening because there's more than one sport. It's a much more affordable entry point, and it serves the larger community as a whole. Having these private clubs come in and bully us around and dictate how we operate is a real problem for me. So I'm excited to have this parks entity on site and working with us. And I'm really, when they do sit down with the board and have a meeting, I would love for one of the topics to be around what has happened to North Road Park, because I think you'll hear from the experts something similar to what I've explained and outlined tonight. If there's no questions on the next two resolutions with the cricket, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution 21-104, enter into agreement with Graceland Cricket Club for use of recreational premises located at North Road Park.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Real quick, Ben, Mr. Grumbles, can you let me know who you are authorizing to sign that agreement?
Mr. King, if you're not opposed to it, since the ops director role falls under your supervision, is that fair for you to sign?
Yes, it is. And Bill was putting it in most of the resolutions authorizing me to sign. So I was signing most of his stuff anyhow. So that's fine.
Okay, so I'll make an audible note here that the prior resolution 21-104, that the board is providing consensus to Mr. King to sign on the board's behalf. Is that, do I have consensus for that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then with that announcement in reading resolution 21-105, it will be implied that Mr. King also has approval.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-105, enter into agreement with North Park Cricket Club for use of recreational premises located at North Road Park.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
All right. Fire report. Chief Rice.
Well, I don't know how much of this Scott is ready to discuss this evening, so I'll jump in unless Scott wants to right here. So one of what you'll see here, I'll jump over the resignation, and if Chief Rice wants to talk about that, I will certainly defer to him. So I think Trustee Taranto raised a question about the refund of sick leave hours. So when I took over this role and we began to sort of re-examine the injury leave and workers' comp type stuff, one of the things that I think was sort of clear, and I talked to the folks over at the fire department, was there wasn't necessarily a great process, a great understanding of how this was done. So I wouldn't say we're quite over the hump, but the way that the injury leave section and the CBA reads is they will be able to get paid essentially their regular wage by Orange Township, and then if they use sick leave or whatever, they'll be able to get it refunded. So in these cases, these are all folks that we're refunding sick leave too, sort of under that provision of the policy. Like I said, it's something that Go HR has been helping Jim Yates with Eastman to try to make sure that we get this straightened out. And in the more recent CBA, we sort of cleaned up the language to better clarify what we're doing, why we're doing it, and when we're doing it. So this is all sort of in service of that. It's my understanding, going back, looking at some older resolutions and things in the file, this was done in the past. No one seemed to really, even some of the firefighters had a good sense of, again, what the policy was, when it was, how it was done, consistently, inconsistently. I don't really know, but I think we're working towards making it a consistent policy going forward. So again, that's what this is in service of.
I don't know about inconsistent or consistent. We always reimbursed their sick leave once they were approved for workers' comp, but there also would always be backup of the hours calculated. That was pretty standard. It happened quite often. I will say though that I felt like the hours were just like one of them was like 528 hours or something like that.
Yep.
So considering how CBiz has gone so far and with Brenda being gone, I guess I'd like to be assured that that is an accurate calculation of his hours.
Well, I'm sure it is. I mean, we can certainly put a pin in it, but what happened, and if Scott wants to chime in here, when we received the individual requests from the firefighters, again, we sort of vetted this by legal and whatnot, and then Patty then went through with Firehouse, because that's where we're still sort of using as the repository of most of this information, and went back through and ran some reports, and through the reports she was able to run in the various different systems. I mean, some of this stuff stretches back to the original CBiz system we had, that it's all done. So like I said, it was done, it was audited, it was looked at, but if we can certainly get you that information for the next meeting if that's what you'd like to do.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So do we want to table this, or do we want to approve it and then?
I'm okay with approving it. I'd just like to see the backup on it, please.
Yeah, and I would too. I still have some questions about the background as far as how do we get to this point. I don't think it's worth elaborating too much further in this meeting. I don't know that it's the right forum. So when we revisit this in a subsequent meeting, we can sprinkle in some concise clarity for our residents that I'm sure if they're listening in, maybe have concerns or questions here too. But I'm going to move the resignation down to the end, because I do believe we have had a resolution for that historically. So I'll make that resolution 109. And I have a resolution ready to go. So when we get there, I'll read that. And then Val, if you need a copy of that, we'll get that for you. In fact, I'll get that to you now, and you can work on that whenever you feel it appropriate. Make a motion to approve resolution 106, authorize the reimbursement of sick leave hours to firefighter paramedic David Grover.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-107, authorize the reimbursement of sick leave hours to firefighter paramedic Donnie Pettis.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-108, authorize the reimbursement of sick leave hours to firefighter paramedic Jeffrey Mitchell.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 21-109, regretfully accepting the resignation of part-time firefighter paramedic Mike Wanat. Have a second?
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Sad to see we're losing another part-time person after the wage increase, and hopefully we can retain and attract a few more. I know that that their presence is helpful and they contribute a lot. And as far as a financial position, it really mitigates overtime and things like that. So hopefully we can get that. I know we have a new chief coming in, and excited to see what else, what other ideas come up and allow us to handle that. Chief Rice, anything further?
I'd just like to thank Mike Walnut for his years of service to the township. He did get a full-time position with Columbus Fire, and I do wish him the best.
Echo that, and congratulations on your full-time role, and would echo that we're grateful for the time spent here in the township. All right, fiscal office, Ms. Kraft.
All right, just a few things. In the backup, you should have noted the engagement letters that are needed by the audit firm that was selected by the Auditor of State for our ones for the 2019 audit. And because of the CARES funds requirement for a single audit, because we received over $750,000, there's a separate agreement for the 2020 audit that includes those services. So I just need, the first resolution is that there is just allowing me to execute those documents. You all have already approved using, accepting them as a vendor in a previous resolution. Then we have 2 liquor licenses that I need to consensus on whether you want to hold or not to hold a liquor license hearing. One is for Taco Team LLC doing business as Yado's Tacos. And the other is for Masa Restaurant Group doing business as Scramblers. Then the another item that I have, oh, real quick, circling back around to the audit, you each should have received the email from the auditor requesting you to fill out the fraud survey. So I think that's due in a couple weeks. So if you could take a look at that at your at your leisure, that would be great. Then we have for the community gardens, there were some emails going back and forth, and figured that the easiest way to handle this was just to kind of create an account code to watch the expenses, since this is, I know that the thought is it won't be more than $5,000, but given that it's the first year and there could be some unexpected expenses, I'm requesting that we appropriate $10,000 for the community gardens. We did set up a separate revenue code for fees associated with the community gardens. So we'll be able to see kind of the cost versus the revenue piece of that as the year progresses. And then associated with those community gardens is a blanket so that some money can start to be spent on those miscellaneous expenses as they come in. And that's all I have.
Well, thank you. And touching on the community garden front, there are several grants that we are going to look at obtaining. We're a little late this year on a couple of them. There's some that I found and some that some of the participants, residents participating, have offered up. But it's been a really positive response so far. We had 26 applications, 1 withdrawal, and then 2 more that came in since. So puts us at 27 so far, and all going well so far. The land's been cleared, it's been tilled, and the start of the beds are going in. I know that Aaron James, appreciate his work. and the team's work to help, and the partnership with Evans and BZ Evans has been great. They did sign the lease, so I have that, and the subsequent documents. So everything moving in the right direction. The garden will be working. We'll be supporting the people in need food pantry as well. So there's some dedicated plots that will be worked through volunteers and place where scouts and such can get their hours. And so at the cost of $20 a plot, we're hoping to obtain some grants to offset any cost. The big cost this year, we've gotten recycled wood and such for all the beds. So there's no cost as of yet incurred outside of the soil that we'll need to purchase. And I've spoken to Price Organics, and we'll be discussing, it's an organic garden, a rate that's favorable for the township. So I'm excited to get moving and further things that would potentially engage the community and activate the community to come out and get outside and meet each other. So appreciate the staff support so far, and so far so good. I wanted to share that because there's a topic on expense, and make sure everybody's aware. Any questions with the resolutions here before I start going into motion? Okay, hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21-110, executive engagement letter from Julian and Grube for the 2019 and 2020 audit of financial statements.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Census, are there any opposition to approve both permits?
No.
No.
No. So we do not need to hold a hearing for those, Ms. Kraft.
Okay, that's fine.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-111, increasing permanent appropriations established in resolution 20-401.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-112, approval of blanket certificate for community gardens.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
Ben, thanks for the work on the community gardens. It's something that was always talked about and intended to do, but you saw the follow through. And I think it's a great addition to our community. So thank you for that.
All right. Administrative report, Mr. King.
Well, thanks. So, I mean, as the board knows, Nathan McNeil has accepted the offer to become our full-time fire chief. So he's residing in town now, and I had the opportunity to spend a good chunk of the day with him today. I think we've got some time scheduled tomorrow and Wednesday to spend some time together. So just to sort of introduce him, the board is already sort of generally aware of him, but just introduce him to the community is Chief McNeil recently retired from the United States Air Force after 22 years of active duty service. So, and during that time, he held leadership positions in several different locations at New Mexico, Texas, Alaska, Missouri. His service with the United States Air Force includes deployments to in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation New Dawn. Chief McNeil comes to us as someone that's from a fire family. His grandfather was a fire chief in his home state of New York, so he's following his footsteps. Had got bitten by the bug when he was 16 years old. Chief McNeil is married to Heather, who actually is from the Central Ohio area, which is what brings him here. She is a alumnus like me of the Ohio State University. She has her PhD and will be working on the campus this fall. And they've got 5 children that they are going to be moving cross country to join us here. So I know Chief McNeil's on the call. I just want to just say that it's been great working with him so far. I mean, he's going to have, I think it's a great opportunity and great challenges ahead of him. And, I'm quite sure working with him that the community is going to welcome him. The staff's going to welcome him, and he's going to be a great new fit. I don't know, Chief, if you want to say anything at this point.
Sure.
Just-
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry, guys. I was just going to say, I'd like to welcome Chief McNeil. Look forward to working with him.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. In case you haven't seen, I've seen most people, but if you haven't seen my face, here it is. I do apologize. Um, it's not my fault, but I'm super excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity. I want to thank the trustees for definitely putting their trust in me, and I'm excited to be part of this team and be part of this community. And I'm looking to together do some big things and great things with for our customers and for our friends and family in the area. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Welcome to the team, Chief McNeil. I look forward to you starting your job. Appreciate you taking the job.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
McNeil, it was a pleasure to get to sit down with you and talk previously. I'm excited to have you here. I want to thank you for your 22 years of service. We won't get into the service discussions. I think we hashed that out well enough when we met, but you served honorably, and I thank you for that. And proud to have someone with a service background that's rooted throughout your family. Is that here in our township, I think the residents are going to welcome you. They've always had a lot of pride in the township's fire department. They're very close, and they hold them in high regard. So you'll have the community support and our support, and look forward to having you on board. And with that, it would be wrong of me to not recognize now former Chief Rice, I suppose, but Captain Scott Rice for stepping up and filling the chief position during transition. Did a phenomenal job and has always been professional and a pleasant demeanor to work with. And so I just want to thank you a lot for all you've done, Captain Rice. It's meant a lot to have you step up internally, and I know it's difficult at times, and administrative stuff isn't fun and not what you signed up to do, but you wouldn't know it. I wouldn't anyway. Maybe some people would know, but I don't, and which says a lot about you. And I want to thank you as well for personally taking me through the firehouse, allowing me to spend some time with the team, and showing me all of the things that I wasn't able to appreciate due to COVID. So can't thank you enough, and for your straightforwardness and all of the discussions we've had, and look forward to continued working with you through as long as you decide to stay with us.
Thank you.
Yep. Welcome aboard, Chief McNeil. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so let's make it official here. Make a motion to approve Resolution 21-113, appointment to full-time position of Fire Chief Nathan McNeil.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
All right. There's a couple other topics on here. A meeting's gone on quite some time. I'm gonna be as quick as possible here, and we can table any action or subsequent discussion as needed. But I wanted to bring up the law enforcement coverage. I know Mr. King has had conversations with the sheriff that have surfaced in our dialogue. There's a course that some of us are around the county are taking right now, where the topic came up as well. And there's obviously been some more significant crime taking place right next door, in real close proximity to the township. that really made me rethink my position on a few things. And so there was no action to request here tonight, other than I do want to get some details and information together and start dialogue with the board in subsequent meetings on how we address law enforcement. In my position, and the residents helped shape this. You know, I want to look at the township's contribution to county finances versus the depth of coverage, or the proportionate to coverage, I should say, in our township, and assess all of our options. But I think it's time for us to really dial in when you look at crime, and you read about it and you study the you know, any sort of white papers or research that's been done. I took some time to do that before being elected, and really diving into it. You see crime start to trickle up, and it starts as small stuff, and if unchecked, it grows. It's something that they can actually graph. You can see visually. That I'll work on providing in subsequent meetings, some of the references I'm citing here. But I think it's important that we insulate ourselves from some of the issues that our neighbors in Columbus are dealing with, just a few miles away, or less than a mile in some cases. But also, you know, we seem to have an uptick in concerns from residents over things as simple as traffic management and enforcement. So we're seeing consequences of that as well. So invite the board to do their research, and I'm going to try and provide information as I compile it to our administrator, and we can align on that further pending any questions from either board member. All right. A new topic that I want to bring to the table, human resources providers. And it's not just issues of late, but I think what we heard, even with the fire and the pay, excuse me, and the pay recovery for sick time and sort of the day-to-day transactions. I wanted to plant a seed with the other board members here, similar to with the law enforcement. I do think it's time to revisit potentially having on staff HR. I think what my reflecting on this, just from the few months that we had on-site HR during my tenure, I think we have to be careful on the reporting structure, and really make sure that they're free and clear of staff and independent. I would say that it might be a more of a director level type role as opposed to a manager, and that we consider that. Again, we can table that discussion, but just wanted to present as a personal concern to the other board members in open session.
And you had or Andrew had an old business organizational structure, OTOC.
Yeah, I glossed over that, so I
Oh,
apologize.
I'm sorry.
That's my fault. The organizational structure OTOC bullet point, we talked a bit around it with the Parks Master Plan, but another discussion I think we need to get to and really consider and reflect on as the board is whether the current kind of dynamic makes sense. And I say this after reflecting for several weeks now on feedback and different things, but also curiosity and you know, some challenges with communication. I'm not sure it's beneficial to have a liaison as much as I did in the past, and I thought it might be easier. I actually think it might be a contributing factor to some of the confusion or communication struggles, because it really, what it does is it limits department heads to, you know, some sort of expectation that they're conversing with one board member disproportionately, and that can be perceived a lot of different ways. But it also requires, additional work, since board members can't have open discussion outside of a meeting, for them to go and provide that level of detail or so on and so forth. In my experience, the department heads have had no reservation about reaching out to board members. And if they need assistance, we can chime in and align on how to provide that. But having an expectation of a liaison, great example of the current construct, because there's a tie-in with OTOC, which Trustee Rivers is currently overseeing, something that's parks related. I'm removed from that. And so as a parks liaison, I'm either playing catch up or I'm not informed or whatever. If there's just an expectation that the board is operating collectively, as opposed to having one board member that does this and one that does that, I can think of a dozen other times where this came up. One, I had inquired about a child being born with our medics in my neighborhood, 3-4 doors down. I had no idea, and was one of the last to find out. I knew that my neighbor had a baby. I didn't realize that the fire department delivered it at the residence. So, the people that were informed, again, it's a liaison, and so it's just things like that. I think at times it can be interpreted in a way that certain people are informed and others aren't. It just doesn't seem ideal in my own personal reflection. I'm one of 3 board members, and I think we need to really reconsider. We don't have to. I'm not asking for any decision tonight. You guys can propose that, but I don't think it's ideal.
If I may, as we're bouncing around these different subjects, and we have a variety of projects, I think we really need to focus on creating a strategic plan of what we wish to accomplish for the rest of 21. The vendors that we're working with, staff, as you just touched on, liaisons, the Parks Master Plan. I believe that's a 6-month project that we have projected. So I think we just really need to look at the calendar, figure out what we want to focus on. Some of these things probably can come up with some solutions, and maybe we make some changes in the next 60, 90 days. Some I'm sure are going to take longer, but I think we have a lot on our plate and just need to focus in on what we are going to do here and tackle for the short term, and what are our long-term plans, and who's going to handle what.
I'm indifferent as far as how we get to a conclusion as one board member, but more recognizing that we have some breakdowns right now that we need to come together and fix. If we need a strategic plan, that's something that I think the administrator, I know there were attempts in the past at those. I wasn't part of one last year, but I believe in prior years there was one done. So we can work on, the staff that was a part of that can get together and talk about it or whatever. And if we want to take another swing at that approach, I would be all for it too. That's fine. But I think my position was more rooted in this liaison and role, and the mixed understanding of what that entails, and kind of just concern in general over not only what the intent is, but what is actually the outcome, and whether it's as effective as intended, right? So I just think we need to go back to the drawing board. If we want to start with a strategic plan, that's sufficient. That's fine with me. But in the same light, I would lump OTOC in general into that, and I think we need to to look at the structure of OTOC, how that is tied to the board and how we execute on OTOC with the board collectively.
The original structure that we had hoped to get to with subcommittees and whatnot is being looked at. I know that's going to be discussed at the next meeting, so I would expect a proposal probably coming soon from OTOC of some ideas and concepts that they look to bring to the board.
Trustee Taranto or Ms. Kraft, any feedback or comments there?
No.
Okay. Last, before we bring in Trey Bell, the virtual meetings and telework, I think with the conversation we've had on the pool and the expectation that, things will probably be relaxed a bit, and where we're at today versus a year ago, I think are completely different spots. I know most folks that want to be vaccinated have had a chance to get at least one shot. And there's an expectation that, by May, if you wanted to get vaccinated, you would have had adequate time to get both. I want to throw out that I would like to see the telework stop. I think that we need to get the staff together. We have a lot of change happening, a lot of new department heads coming in, and we need to come together and work. It's far more effective to go through times like this where we have a lot of work and a lot moving. If we're all together in person, we have a 18,000 or so square foot building. The head count we have should not be a concern to have the limited staff that are in that building. If we were fully staffed and not teleworking, to spread out and feel safe working on site. I know there's been a few proposals on how to configure the building. I think there's a million ways to go about that. The only thing that needs to happen in the front of the office is to put a desk there, and there's a separate walk-in area with separate access point, so there's no safety issue anymore. I think we just need to get moving out on that, and I believe in looking at the timelines published, May made the most sense because it allows for that second dose if for those interested. So
I think going back to our conversation with the pool, things are hopefully turning the corner here. I think we just need to establish some goals and a gradual return. May, June seems to make sense. I know a lot of businesses, are targeting the June date. So I think we need to make any decisions tonight, but a gradual return, early summer. We shoot for that goal. We figure out what changes need to be made or put together our plan, have our dates and our timeline together, and make sure we got all of our ducks in a row to, return to hopefully business as usual.
So Mr. King, tasker there, if you will, if you want to talk with staff and come up with a pitch for the next meeting, it would be appreciated on my behalf anyway. As far as any feedback from the team and kind of if late May is sufficient, early June, whatever feedback you get, I think I'd be interested in hearing it. I'm sure the board members would be. And I think the same holds true from a virtual meeting standpoint, where we can start meeting again on site whenever we transition from that. I think that makes sense. We'll demonstrate the same we're asking the staff to do and come to the town hall and meet in person. Would be the goal for me anyway.
I can certainly talk to the staff. I mean, I think everyone's been more present throughout the week. I mean, the one thing sort of riffing off what Trustee Rivers said there, and I think what Fiscal Officer Kraft said earlier, I mean, Ohio is having the cases go up right now. So May might be a little soon, but I mean, I share the same optimism that I expressed with the pool. I think as we're heading into, this has followed a pretty predictable flu-like pattern up and down. So, you know, somewhere in that June-ish area, I would think we're going to see things be like where they were last summer, where, you know, you're pretty safe and not much is going on. So I can certainly talk to the staff, but I would note that the cases have been going up in Ohio. That isn't true everywhere, but they have in Ohio. So I would probably be thinking of a few months further out than May, but you know, we can certainly keep an eye on that and track that.
Yep, I just think we need to have a discussion on, I think the reason I bring up May is that was the timeline from a dose where they've lowered the cutoffs and such, where everybody should have had an opportunity. So if it's June and the data and the numbers say June, I actually asked the health department. They didn't respond to that question when I sent them a note. I was curious about other entities and if they were aware of any return to work cadence that made sense, and didn't get a response. So we can, you know, I can re-ask that question, if you will.
Yeah, Trustee Grumbles, if I can chime in a little bit, just for the board's knowledge, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to let the board know that starting this month, April, we did increase the zoning staff presence at the township, mainly because it's permit season and we do still have people coming in. So just let you know, there should be always 2 of us here out of the 4. So we have increased that this month, and you know, we do find it, you know, people are working from home quite well. You know, I'd be curious to see if there's a potential hybrid approach, but I do think zoning staff has always been present during the time of this pandemic. So just wanted to let you all know that.
I'm open to that. Hybrid transition or ease into it or whatever. I just think we need to start having the conversation. And the point I made about incoming staff and changes is I think something to be mindful of. We have a new fire chief that we hired tonight, and we have a pending operations director role, and you know, so some key leadership positions coming aboard, and I think we need to just make sure that we're providing for at least some interaction and assistance with onboarding. I know it can be very challenging to onboard and meet your team and develop all of the parts necessary to get a good start with a high telework ratio. So I'm sure we'll have a good discussion in the next meeting on that. I know we've been in this meeting a long time, and we're finally to Trey Bell. So Scott, if you're here, can come off mute. I don't know if he's still on the call.
Yes, sir.
No, Scott, the gentleman from Trey Bell Energy. I didn't know if he was, unless you're multitasking today, Mr. Rice. I think
I've done that before.
at the wrong Scott. I apologize. I know he had mentioned he was on the call, so I didn't know if he was in the waiting room. If somebody could let him in, it'd be.
Yeah, I don't see him in our participants.
Is there anyone in the waiting room, Michelle or Val?
No, there's not.
No.
Well, maybe we'll have to table it in that case.
Let me text him. Was he provided the information?
Yeah, he texted me that he was here and ready to talk. So that was 2 or 3 hours ago. So who knows? I think we all saw the information that he provided. I did speak with him on the phone, and he explained his recommendation. He says he's in chat. don't know if that means he's.
Oh, is he on the YouTube? Is that the YouTube part?
Oh, no, yeah, I bet you.
I can see if I can find him. I mean, he'd have to be on the Zoom part, of course, to talk to us, but
And somebody surely gave him the Zoom information, right?
Yeah, send him the phone number just to call in.
okay. I think I can message that on Zoom.
Michelle, do you have a phone number he would call in at?
Um,
Or just
yeah,
have,
I just forwarded him the link, so he'll be calling in or joining the meeting here momentarily. But I know I spoke with him, and I saw a forwarded email. Trustee Rivers, sounds like you had a chance to see it. I don't expect it to be a tremendous wait here. Michelle and Val, if you want to kind of watch out for him, he may be coming any moment now.
sounds good.
Hello?
There he is.
There
Yeah,
I am. Nice.
right.
Sorry.
Your floor, sir. If you want to introduce what you're here for.
Yeah, no problem. This is Scott Belcastro with Trey Bell here to discuss the electric aggregation renewal. Our last one is coming to an end here in July. The existing rate that we've been on. Hello?
I can hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing like a.
We can hear you though, Scott. So if you want to
Okay.
keep going.
I'll keep this running. I'm not sure what I'm hearing, like a repeat of everything I'm saying. But in any event, the current rate that you guys have is a 4.8. And we've had a lot of different people calling in for the program. We're excited about it. And as a result of going through the bid process, we've got some new numbers ready to go for this year. In any event,
Hey, Scott, if you
I
mute your
recommend-
YouTube, you shouldn't be hearing yourself. That'll be.
Yeah, I sent him I sent him a text saying the same thing. So I think he's
Okay.
good to go.
one moment, everybody. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I just went ahead and called in to this number. My number is 614-425-4885. If you could let me in that. And that way I can just. There we go.
Scott, you need to get rid of one of yours on here. You're signed on twice.
There we go. Sorry. I don't know why. I do a ton of these meetings. I don't know why I'm having such problems. So you guys can all hear me now, okay, correct?
I can.
Yes? All right, great. I'm going to keep moving forward. Sorry about this. Yeah, we got the bids out that came in, and I've called each one of the trustees just so everybody knows that, kind of reviewed the information, went over the whys of what we're doing. There is an issue with the capacity costs. I think we probably addressed it last year, which is why we only did a one-year program. There's been no resolution for capacity, which makes up about 20 to 25% of the rate of electric. And this is set through auction in our markets. Well, they've only got through 2022 of May established, so we only know 1 year. I really get kind of nervous going out too long on our program, but at the same time, I need to make sure that or at least make recommendations that we're going to have a money-saving competitive program, at least be competitive with the PTC, the price to compare. And as a result, I've been kind of shying away from the longer 30-year program or 3-year programs, or even longer sometimes. The reason for that is if we enter into this agreement and capacity does come down, we will have been obligated to a very long contract that we can't get out of. And so what I tried to do is make a recommendation to the group to have our rate be somewhere in that the shortest we could get with the best rate. What we ended up here with today was a 29-year program with Energy Harbor, the current supplier that you're with now. So that'll be kind of a good thing. And it just happened to work out like that in this case. But Energy Harbor would be my recommendation to renew on a 29 months at a 4.770. So, and it is a fixed rate for 29 months. Any residents listening to this recording, just understand again that in this case, it's going to be a reduction in your rate over the next, from the last agreement that we had at 4.82. So I think we're in a good spot, and I think it should be a decent rate for us going over the next 29 months. Keep in mind too that we'll have gotten through 12 months of this program already with known capacity, and then we only have to ride out that last 17 months. So I think it takes some risk off the supplier, takes some risk off of the residents. And this evening, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask, but my recommendation is renewal with Energy Harbor for a 29-month program. If anybody wants to jump in, they can.
Is there a resolution that we need to pass for that tonight?
I would need, these are bids. I would ask that, as we've done in the past, one of the trustees would normally make a motion to choose a specific supplier for a term and appoint someone to sign it, and they can execute that tomorrow. That's typically how we've done it in the past.
Recommendation.
Yeah, I think when speaking with you, it made sense. The only question I had was the term, and I looked again, and the form I have says 25 months. So if you just confirm I believe it was Energy Harbor, is that correct?
Correct.
And it was for a term of, can you confirm the months?
Yeah, I'm staring at our bid sheet here, and it does say 29 months, and it goes from July to December, the agreement that was given to me. So I wonder if somebody just made a mistake, because going from July to a December of 23 is without question a 29-month program, right?
Right. So maybe they just revised it. The rates are the same. I think that's what's important.
Yeah, if you guys want to like scratch out 25, put 29? Because that's just, again, look at, there's a Appendix A in your contract that lays out the, the start and finish, and that
Sure.
would equal 29 months. I'm not sure where in the heck that 25 came from.
Okay. Yeah, it just was in a document I got, and that's okay. I think that, like I said, it's the same window you're referring to. I'm fine with it, and I appreciate your call today and explaining the logic there. Kind of hedging both sides of a lose-lose situation if we don't pick a responsibly. So, any concerns, Trustee Taranto, Trustee Rivers?
No, I'm fine with it.
Okay, and then I'll make the motion now. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-114, entering into agreement with Trey Bell to select Energy Harbor as our electric provider for a period of 29 months. The board will allow administrator or nominate Administrator Andrew King to sign the contract upon completion.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate all you've done, and thank you for taking the resident calls and working through those issues I forwarded your way. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries, everybody. Have a good evening. Take care.
All right, nothing further. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21-115, meeting adjournment.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Everyone have a good evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.